Good afternoon, distinguished guests, colleagues, and the dedicated men and women of the United States Coast Guard. I am Master Chief Jason Vanderheyden, and it is my privilege to be here at beautiful Air Station Clearwater, Florida. What an amazing 4 years it's been. Throughout my tenure as MCPOG, I have seen our service continue to flourish in spite of many challenges. The Coast Guard is growing in number and advancing our organizational culture. We have new state-of-the-art assets coming online which will dramatically improve the way we operate in the future. Last year in San Diego, we talked about the tech revolution. Through hard work and innovation, we advanced our technology systems with increased mobility, at-sea communications, and improved analytics to make data-driven decisions. Through your help, completing workforce surveys and field data collection, we updated our human resource policies, removing equity and inclusion barriers to remain the world's best Coast Guard. As the Commandant often says, the demand for Coast Guard services has never been higher, and you've met those demands, both domestically and globally. From hurricane responses and oil spills to increased IUU fishery missions and Operation Allies Welcome, you all have answered the call. And despite today's challenging environment, our total workforce not only exceeds what it means to be ready, relevant, and responsive, but your innovation, dedication, and agility has been an inspiration to all who serve our country. Take, for example, CS1 Zachary Knapp. He's Base Charleston's local housing officer, and he provides support for the states of South Carolina and Georgia. During a time when housing costs have skyrocketed, CS1 Knapp worked tirelessly to collect data in an effort to accurately reflect housing costs for more than 55,000 members of all branches of the military in his AOR. Showing remarkable creativity and ingenuity, he created a new data tracking system resulting in an increase in BAH for 94% of pay grades. That's the highest in South Carolina and Georgia history. CS1 Knapp, your work has helped increase the quality of life for not only your shipmates at Base Charleston, but the rest of the armed forces in the entire area. Way to go, shipmate. And I want to highlight another great Coastie, BM2 Jennifer Williamson from Station Wrightsville Beach. BM2 Williamson is a critically important member of her unit both on and off duty. This summer, she showcased her skills in quick decision-making while on liberty with her family at the beach in Fort Fisher, North Carolina. 3 men got caught in a rip current and were quickly being pulled from shore, and others attempted to reach the men but failed because of the strength of the current. Recognizing she couldn't battle the current and hold all 3 men above the water, she grabbed a boogie board from a bystander and used it to reach the men and bring them to safety. BM2 Williamson's quick thinking and training resulted in 3 lives saved that day. BM2 Williamson, you are a hero. And MK2 Mila Caldwell. Stand up, Mila. She's from Station Yankeetown, an outstanding leading petty officer at a remote small boat station. She has been key in meeting operational requirements supporting her teammates. Demonstrating exceptional bias for action over the past 10 months, she led the unit in law enforcement efforts, conducting more than 100 fisheries boardings and 200 recreational safety boardings. And if that isn't enough, MK2 Caldwell also serves as the unit's law enforcement instructor, where she has assisted in qualifying over a dozen boarding officers and boarding team members. Her technical expertise and acumen earned her the engineering lead in the operational testing and evaluation of the service's new shallow watercraft. And to date, she's helped 16 members earn their qualification on the asset. MK2 Caldwell's professionalism and devotion to duty make her an invaluable member of Team Coast Guard. Bravo Zulu, MK2 Caldwell, way to go. And these are just a few examples of how our amazing people have led and succeeded through challenging times. Your professionalism and dedication is unmatched. The U.S. Coast Guard's enduring success is because of you, our people, ever adaptive, agile, resilient, and united in service to advance the Coast Guard, to protect the homeland, and to support our nation's prosperity and security. Thank you for everything that you do each and every day. And now it's my privilege to welcome to the podium the 26th Commandant of the United States Coast Guard, Admiral Carl Schultz.
Thank you, Master Chief Vanderheyden, and thanks for calling out those exceptional Coast Guardsmen. To Captain Joe McGilly and the Air Station Clearwater team, thank you for hosting this year's State of the Coast Guard Address. Thank you, Secretary Mayorkas, represented here by our local DHS teammates in attendance. And to my shipmates across the Coast Guard, thank you for your participation today. Today, the State of the Coast Guard is strong, maybe stronger than ever before, because we are united in service, adapting to new challenges and opportunities presented by a rapidly changing maritime domain. We've seen massive ships pushing the limits of both ports and waterways, evolving autonomous vessel technology, including the recovery of spacecraft at sea, growth in offshore wind energy, increasingly busy shared use waterways, escalating cyber threats to vessels and critical infrastructure in our ports, and more frequent and costly weather events. We have monitored distant water fishing fleets who set lines and nets more than 9,000 miles from their native shores, and absent any flag state oversight to assure responsible behavior. And we've observed what were historically frozen waters become increasingly navigable. In addition, we have been both organizationally and personally affected by disruptions to our interconnected global supply chain. These changes together trigger a persistent demand for more Coast Guard work. This transformational change in the maritime domain and its blistering pace is not confined to the United States. Rather, it is global. These changes taking place in coastal waters act as a forcing mechanism, compelling coastal nations worldwide to establish or bolster their own Coast Guards and to adapt or expand their existing maritime security capabilities. For it is Coast Guard work to ensure safety of life at sea, to protect marine environments and to promote economic prosperity, and to generally maintain what we call good order and governance in the waters of coastal state jurisdiction. In response, your Coast Guard has done what we always have done. We've continued to evolve. We are a learning organization with a growth mindset, continuously adapting to emerging national and international challenges and opportunities. Our enduring success throughout our 232-year history, accentuated by these uniquely challenging past 3 years, is because we are ever adaptive, agile, and resilient. And because we are united in service, we are always ready.
Some may think we're hard to define because our missions are vast in scope and geography. But we're not defined by what we do. We're defined by who we are. Driven by our values and united by a purpose to protect, defend, and save. To enable prosperity and do whatever it takes to help those in need, anytime, anywhere. It's this purpose that connects our missions. It's what pushes us during those crucial moments when we answer the call. And in this era of Coast Guards, it's what unites us with partners around the world. We are united in service. We are the United States Coast Guard.
Almost 4 years ago, we launched a strategic framework for a ready, relevant, and responsive Coast Guard to address America's most complex and dynamic maritime challenges. Because we are united in service within our own communities and across the organization, with our Department of Homeland Security counterparts, with the Department of Defense Joint Force, and across the interagency, and with our international partners, we have driven forward our strategic plan, and we are building the Coast Guard the nation needs today and well into the future. While we adjust course to best address enduring and emerging challenges, one constant remains: the need to deliver the assets, the resilient infrastructure and capabilities necessary to accomplish the mission. Our Coast Guard's amidst the largest shipbuilding effort since the Second World War as we build the fleet that will serve the nation for decades to come. This June, the 10th National Security Cutter, to be named for the first Master Chief Petty Officer of the Coast Guard, Charles Calhoun, will be christened. And detailed work remains underway in preparation for construction of our first polar security cutter. That'll be a state-of-the-art ship requiring exacting designs, complex steel work, and systems integration. And today I'm excited to name the first polar security cutter, and that name will be Polar Sentinel. When our fleet of polar security cutters becomes operational, the work of these uniquely capable assets will be essential to protecting our economic, our environmental, and our national security interests in the polar, or what we call the high latitude regions. And our first offshore patrol cutter, the Argus, is over 60% complete. The second OPC, hull number 2, Chase, is well on its way. This spring, we anticipate awarding the largest acquisition contract in the history of our service for the next 11 offshore patrol cutter hulls, and that is stage 2 of the OPC program. The OPC program is a program of record for 25 cutters, and delivery of this full fleet is critical to recapitalizing the capability provided today by our 28 medium endurance cutters, many of which are 50+ years old. That legacy fleet today loses nearly 500 patrol days on an annual basis due to unplanned maintenance and repairs. And if you sort of stretch this out, if we looked at these lost patrol days and just assigned them to one mission, counter-narcotics, if these were just average days in terms of medium endurance cutter productivity, that equates to about 20 metric tons or 44,000 pounds of illicit drugs that could have been interdicted and prevented from reaching streets of America. So replacing this legacy fleet at best speed is absolutely vital for the Coast Guard to effectively carry out our evolving missions. And we're making progress on the acquisition of 30 waterways commerce cutters. These new tenders will have greater endurance, speed, and deck load capacity to efficiently maintain 28,000 aids to navigation, marking over 12,000 miles of navigable inland waterways. These aids to navigation are a critical component of our marine transportation system, upon which cargoes and commodities comprising 25% of our nation's gross domestic product move annually. And for the first time in history, our entire inland fleet will be able to accommodate mixed-gender crews, providing all enlisted members of our service these unique afloat experiences. In the interim period, we're creating additional float billets for our women shipmates, like third-class bosun mate Haley LaRue, who operates aboard Cutter Wire for Sector New York. And much change is afoot in our aviation community, where we are recapitalizing and changing the composition of our fleet, delivering new and upgraded fixed-wing platforms, and strategically relocating assets. We now have 2 long-range HC-130J Super Hercules in Hawaii, where air crews have greater capability to conduct missions in a region that's known for the tyranny of distance. Our medium-range HC-144 sited in Miami, Mobile, Cape Cod, and Corpus Christi, as well as our C-27Js in Sacramento, are instrumental to meeting mission objectives as well. Both platforms are receiving upgrades to their capabilities, including installation of the Minotaur mission system that enables our air crews to better gather, process, and share critical tactical information in real time with units both underway and ashore. And by this time next year, the new C-27J simulator at Aviation Training Center Mobile will be up and fully operational. And as I talk about aviation, I'd like to thank the top-notch professionals at Elizabeth City's Aviation Logistics Center. It's around 1,700 strong, and they form the hub of Coast Guard aviation support. They keep our 200+ aircraft flying. The Aviation Logistics Center, ALC, continuously adapts and continues to amaze, including their recent blade fold, tail fold MH-60 conversion project. From depot-level maintenance, where they entirely deconstruct and rebuild aircraft with new components and new mission systems, to organically manufacturing critical spare parts. The team at Aviation Logistics Center enables our crews to fly 47,000+ sorties every year. I'm a bit of a throwback muscle car junkie, and Aviation Logistics is the Coast Guard aircraft as Chip Foose is to overhaul a muscle car. So I'd ask you to take a look at this video that captures a couple of these aircraft operating out of Air Station Cape Cod.
I was laying in my bunk, and I felt the whole boat shake 4 levels up.
This was something beyond what I could fathom.
60-knot winds, 30-foot seas.
I knew it was going to take everything that Canada and the United States Coast Guard had.
ARC Search and Rescue, bonjour. We were alerted through our Coast Guard radio station that a vessel was on fire. Due to the weather and the circumstances behind their distress, we reached out to our SAR partners, including the U.S. Coast Guard.
They said it was taking on water approximately 200 miles or more off of Cape Cod. So we launched to go 200 miles offshore into the dark to assist.
When you look down at the vessel in distress, the Atlantic Destiny, it was just out of control. It was just at the mercy of the wind and the waves.
It's not every day you get to see a large vessel like that being battered by a significant sea state. You could see it in their faces. They're starting to be concerned. Some of the older guys, they've been around, they know how many vessels get lost out here, and they've been around the block.
I kept thinking that I wanted to get home, and knowing that there was people being lifted and going home gave me hope that I would join them as well.
We were still trying to rescue people, and then my helicopter ended up having a major malfunction. I had to make the choice to leave my own crew members on that vessel and leave with who I had on board and try and make it back to shore.
Helicopter's gone, nothing I can do about that. This rescue still needs to happen, and I could see the Jayhawks starting to come in.
And we have to now divide and conquer with both 60s.
We moved in position. We jettisoned our mask rescue operations raft and deployed our pump to the vessel in order to make room for all the survivors.
I could hear over all the noise and through my headset all the guys in the back just cheering, like as I'm pulling another person in. Hearing that, like, okay, we can get one more. We can get one more. So that's what we did.
We are honored to be with you today to talk about some extraordinary Coast Guard men and women that did extraordinary things.
It was teamwork at its finest. I mean, by every agency involved. Something went wrong at every step, and it was rectified, and we just kept going to the point where everyone made it back to shore.
Everybody took their job seriously and made sure that we were all going to get home safe.
It makes everything worth it, being able to see a family reunited after a case like that.
What a great case with our international Canadian partners. Every operational commander knows that Coast Guard missions begin and end at a facility. During my last day of the Coast Guard, I emphasized that to remain always ready, we must invest in our shore facilities. A message that fortunately has been heard loud and clear. We have seen historic support for our infrastructure, including $429 million recently enacted in the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act to address critical shore needs. Those funds address 18 distinct projects across the Coast Guard. And thanks to congressional support, we have many sizable construction projects underway right now at 8 small boat stations like Station Key West, at the Coast Guard Yard, and at 3 new Cutter home ports. And we're building the first new Coast Guard air station in decades from the ground up in Ventura, California, and that is scheduled to be completed this time next year. And we're currently executing about $1.4 billion dedicated to improving shore facilities across our service, and we anxiously await $200 million of additional funds in the fiscal year 22 budget, which will allow us to tackle another critical 11 infrastructure projects. And I'd be remiss if I did not thank the hardworking civil engineers and contracting officers who will make these projects a reality. Acknowledging these increased demands on this community, which is a good problem to have, our fiscal 22 budget includes 20 new civil engineering positions. We must continue to invest in this workforce and enable them with the people, tools, and technology to rebuild facilities needed to execute our critical missions. And we must ensure every dollar invested in shore infrastructure provides maximum impact. In addition to investing in facilities that support our missions, we are investing in facilities that support our workforce. Do you know the last time we built a new child development center was 10 years ago in Petaluma, and before that, 25 years ago in San Juan, Puerto Rico? No longer. Thanks to congressional support, we've received $120 million in funding for new construction of child care development centers in Alameda, Kodiak, Mobile, Astoria, and Elizabeth City, and modest improvements to our child care center in Cape Cod, Massachusetts. As Congress remains supportive to updating our infrastructure, building to climate-informed and resilient standards is at the forefront of our minds. In late January, I visited Training Center Petaluma to break ground for the Coast Guard's newest sustainable energy project, a solar grid designed to provide 10 days of self-sustaining power for the entire Training Center campus. Initiatives like this enable our service to remain always ready as we adapt to more prevalent and severe natural disasters, such as California wildfires and hurricanes striking our Atlantic and Gulf Coast regions. And we're also making tremendous progress, as Master Chief noted, in the tech revolution. Our new medical health record system, MHS Genesis, has gone live service-wide, making patient record retrieval easier and faster, reducing administrative errors and allowing electronic information exchange with the Department of Defense Veterans Affairs system, as well as commercial care providers. And we've shifted to DoD 365 cloud computing ahead of our DoD counterparts, allowing our members to access their work accounts from personal computers with the use of a simple Commerce Access card reader device. This capability especially helps our Coast Guard reservists, who can now access their Coast Guard email and other collaboration tools from anywhere. And by August, we anticipate our personnel electronic records management system will also go live to enable our members, as well as those retired or separated from service, to have on-demand access to their military personal records. And we started recapitalizing all 48,000 Coast Guard standard computer workstations with more modern mobile capabilities. 20,000 laptops are scheduled for delivery this year alone, which will enable both faster and more powerful computing and provide additional mobility to our workforce. You know, mobility is a key enabler that enhances the innovation of our personnel. Thanks to the ingenuity of ForceSysCom and the Coast Guard Headquarters Commercial Vessel Compliance Team, we've modernized training for delivery for the apprentice marine inspectors and our vessel examiners. These members will soon utilize what we call on-demand e-learning and unit-administered on-the-job training. This hybrid delivery method for professional development, known as the Marine Inspection Performance Support Architecture, or MIPSA, is part of the Prevention Readiness Initiative and carries great potential to influence training and readiness within other enterprise programs. And in addition to adapting how we deliver training, we are united in service, modernizing how we collect, how we use, and how we interpret data. Modern computing will soon be informed by Surveyor, a big data platform that's under development now. Surveyor will integrate data across the Coast Guard enterprise, from systems you are all familiar with, Direct Access, ALMIS, Missile, and others, to not only reduce the burden of manual data entry by Coast Guard personnel, but to also empower our workforce to make data-driven decisions to allocate finite resources judiciously towards the highest risks and threats to our marine environment and our maritime security. Even our most remote operators will be able to access this data as our C5I community continues to prove their support to our globally deployed Coast Guard men and women. Today, our cutters have an increased ability to perform their mission while underway, with improved access to Coast Guard software applications. In addition, our crews, both ashore and at sea, can now enjoy secure access to personal email, social media, and even video messaging with family back home. In the coming years, all afloat platforms will benefit from forward-thinking, next-generation cutter connectivity, designed to significantly increase bandwidth, resilience, and even provide Wi-Fi underway. While there is a long way to go before this improved connectivity is available across our entire fleet, we are moving swiftly in the right direction. And these recent tech initiatives are indicative of a heavy evolution in attitude within our own service towards data and towards IT investments. Today, we see IT for what has always been, an operational platform that supports a more ready Coast Guard, a platform that is essential for us to be united in service. Acknowledging the critical importance of such technology and making the requisite investments is essential to the success of any modern organization. And we are grateful for the $275 million appropriated by Congress since I became Commandant to support our tech revolution, which launched the first wave of transformational changes in how we deploy reliable and integrated mobile information systems to our extraordinarily capable team. New platforms, process, and technologies are indeed enabling functions. They enable and empower our workforce, the backbone of our service, to work smarter and more effectively. And as I've said since early in my tenure, when we provide our workforce in an environment which all members can thrive and the tools to get the job done, therein resides mission success, and therein resides high employee satisfaction. As we move forward, we must honor and be informed by our past. Yesterday, I had the privilege to commission the John Sherman, the 46 of 64 new fast response cutters. And this is the 5th of 6 FRCs destined to support the U.S. Navy's 5th Fleet in Bahrain. As FRCs are named after Coast Guard enlisted heroes, each commissioning ceremony adds a new chapter to our storied Coast Guard history.
The history of the U.S. Coast Guard is comprised of moments. Moments of danger and uncertainty. Moments of turmoil and distress. And it's in these moments that we answer the call. For over 230 years, we've stood the watch. A legacy of bravery, grit, and determination. To protect our communities and to serve our nation. To be part of those moments that make a difference. Those moments that make history. We need a place for those moments to live forever. That place will be the National Coast Guard Museum.
Thanks, Master Chief Vanderheyden, for highlighting that ours is a rich history that needs to be celebrated, and that will be the case forthcoming at the National Coast Guard Museum in New London, Connecticut, our top philanthropic priority, our service's most significant, ambitious philanthropic initiative to date. So I encourage you to learn more about this important project led by the National Coast Guard Museum Association. And when we talk of FRCs, 3 will be homeported here in the Tampa Bay area at Sector St. Petersburg. Our modern vessels are different in size, complexity, and capability than the legacy platforms they replace. They have more systems, more parts, more tonnage, and greater range. Accordingly, the Mission Support Enterprise is also united in service to provide integrated, responsive, and innovative support for our operators. Traditionally, the responsibility of in-port maintenance has been placed largely on our cutter crews, but we are making substantial moves to ease the in-port workload and improve work-life balance for those assigned to our cutters. 40 new cutter support billets will be added upon enactment of our current year budget, including port engineers, machinery and weapons technicians, and quality assurance personnel. And meanwhile, our logistics workforce is innovating enhanced steady-state support to our cutters, both in-port and underway, through the stand-up of an expeditionary logistics group to help provide downrange logistic capabilities to optimally support our deployed assets. This capability, still in its infancy, is modeled after processes used in our land-based contingency efforts, like when we respond to hurricanes. When Ida struck the Gulf region as a Category 4 hurricane last year, the scale of destruction to Louisiana ports was matched by its disruptive impact to our workforce, including the displacement of over 1,600 Coast Guard personnel and their families. Reconstituting the region's ports and waterways and assisting our families affected by the storm required responsive, integrative, and innovative mission support. And the Mission Support Enterprise again delivered. United in service, the Director of Operational Logistics, in conjunction with bases Galveston and New Orleans, coordinated with the 8th District and Atlantic Area Commanders to create the Family Assessment Support Tool to track and respond to Coast Guard personnel needs. This tool enabled the expedited securing of temporary lodging for over 700 Coasties and their families, as well as coordinated delivery of medical care for 32 members displaced from their regional providers. You know, our spouses, parents, siblings, and children often share the responsibilities and burden of military service. I thank each and every family member for your support. And I'd be remiss . Thank you. And I'd be remiss if I didn't thank both Coast Guard Mutual Assistance and the Coast Guard Foundation for their critical support of Team Coast Guard. Most impressively, these organizations continue to find new ways to best support our personnel and the broader Coast Guard family, which in turn enables our workforce to deliver mission excellence anytime, anywhere. You know, we are an agile, adaptive force whose greatest value to this nation resides in our ability to rapidly shift our missions and our efforts to meet national priorities during both steady state and crises. And it seems that we are more frequently responding to crises. While the agility, strength, and resilience of our 42,000-strong active duty force continues to impress, we could not have performed all that was asked of us if not for our reserve component and our voluntary auxiliary.
I joined the Coast Guard Reserves because I wanted to be able to join a service that I would actually do the job of the active duty, not just train to do the job.
Chief Schwartz is a perfect example of what reservists want to do. They want to be able to go in on a drill weekend. They want to be able to leverage their civilian knowledge, background, expertise, and be able to use that and actually do the job.
I got started in the HVAC industry. My grandpa originally got into it after World War II, after he got out of the Army. Just been around it all my life. Being on the civilian side, I'm on the front line of it. I get to mess with all the new technology, new equipment, and I'm able to bring that to the Coast Guard, help the active duty, bring them up to speed on the technology and all that I learned out on the civilian side.
Chief Schwartz has deployed 7 times in the past 4 years. He's been there to respond for parental leave program on 2 separate occasions.
I was like, yeah, I'll go, no problem. I mean, that's the whole point you're in the reserves, is to be able to go when they need you.
Knowing that like when I was gone, that they were gonna have somebody come in that was basically qualified on the, our assets was nice, because I knew that that would give them relief.
He's been able to go in and seamlessly integrate relieving an active duty person from their job so they can focus on starting their new family.
I think Chief Schwartz has shown Station Crisfield a bigger picture of the Coast Guard. If he's away from his family to help out our family, it showed the Coast Guard and the members at Station Crisfield what the Coast Guard really is.
You know, last fall, Coast Guard personnel supported 13 contingency operations occurring simultaneously, on top of steady state business. In every major operation, reservists and auxiliaries were united in service, side by side with our full-time personnel. They were among 100 medical personnel deployed to the southwest border, supporting Customs and Border Protection operations. They supported FEMA, and are among the medical contingent who delivered CDC-recommended vaccines to Afghan nationals in support of DHS's Operation Allies Welcome. And auxiliarist Mark Perney, he helped ensure that our workforce, our own workforce, expeditiously received COVID vaccines. I'm grateful to our dedicated medical personnel, consisting collectively of just 800 medical officers, physicians, pharmacists, administrators, health service technicians, and auxiliary volunteers. United in service, these professionals strengthen our readiness posture. Thank you. You know, a ready, robust readiness posture enables us to lead in crisis. Sector Los Angeles Long Beach Commander Captain Rebecca Ore led in crisis as the nation watched, establishing a unified command and leading 1,800 first responders, public safety professionals, assessment teams, and response workers to clean Southern California's waters, beaches, and wildlife. And the Coast Guard Navigation Center, NAVCENT as it's known, employed a data-driven approach to provide timely visuals for the unified command to use in their risk-based decision-making, to optimize the placement of finite resources in those areas most affected by the oil. NAVCENT's input, Captain Ore's leadership, and the strong partnership between federal, state, and local agencies, united in service with scientists, wildlife care experts, and technical specialists, was critical to the success of the 13-week cleanup operation. And our robust readiness posture enabled the Coast Guard to be the first responder on scene in August 2021 after a devastating 7.2 magnitude earthquake struck the Tiburon Peninsula, or southern claw of Haiti. At the request of the Haitian government and coordinated by the senior U.S. defense official in Haiti, Reserve Coast Guard Captain Greg Duncan, we surged aircraft and crews to help Haitian citizens.
When we initially got word of the earthquake, we really had no idea what we were going to be going into. Obviously, we knew there was going to be a lot of injuries. We expected to see a lot of trauma, and when we got there, that's pretty much what we encountered. Everyone that we medevaced out was, bone breaks, some sort of trauma, crushing injuries that needed immediate care. So we were able to go in there and airlift them out to a higher level of care. We land in Jeremy, we get out, get the doctors out and everything, and there's vans waiting for us.
We flew to Jeremy not really knowing what to expect, what we were going to encounter. When we got there, we landed and I got out of the helicopter. I immediately went over to the van that they were pulling up that had patients in it, and they opened up the doors and I was immediately handed a little child.
So I kind of had to take a step back, hold my breath, gain my composure, and just start going.
Just because I wasn't expecting that right away. There was like 4 or 5 children that we medevaced right away, and like right there and then they're like, all right, it's go time. We're getting them onto the helicopter with their parents and escorting them out. So I think all of the crew, we didn't know what to expect going into it, and that's kind of like what the pace was the whole time. It was a lot of children, a lot of injured people, and from there we just medevaced them to Port-au-Prince to a higher level of care.
So I wasn't sure what to expect. I was blown away with the amount of hurt and injuries and the devastation with the infrastructure there. But we were there to help out, to get these people higher medical attention and to save as many lives as we could, and that's what we did. The aircraft, the helicopters down there were flying all day long, a lot of flight hours, nonstop, only stopping to fuel, and pretty much was the only time that we shut down. The reason we do what we do back home, like all of our training flights, all of the maintenance practices that we follow, every single thing that we do, and we may, wonder at times like why we're doing it, that purpose was very much evident to me once we were down there executing these missions. Obviously, it's difficult to train for such a natural disaster like this one, but we do train all the time. We are always ready to take the call.
Here today on the hangar deck of our largest Coast Guard air station, let me ask the members of Clearwater team who supported these Haitian earthquake operations to please stand. Well done, team. Thank you. As the video highlights, the United States Coast Guard was on scene with just 24 hours of the tragic quake. Our adaptability, agility, and responsiveness allow us to get in places before anyone else. And the MH-60 Jayhawk, with its endurance and power, proved invaluable during the Haiti response efforts. This past year, we transformed Air Station Borinquen into a Jayhawk unit to provide the 7th Coast Guard District with more rotary wing capability. And we look forward to the innovative ways air crews will employ these helicopters further downrange. As threats to our national security and our nation's prosperity evolve, so too must we evolve. Our nation's economic prosperity relies on free and open maritime trade. This begins with the safety, security, and efficiency of America's 360 ports. This past year, Americans came to recognize the interconnectedness of the global economy where many were personally affected by the temporary closures of the Suez Canal and the Colonial Pipeline, as well as ship congestion off Los Angeles and other U.S. ports. Much of the responsibility to assure a safe and efficient port relies on our Shore Forces enterprise, 15,000 personnel assigned to 37 sectors located across the nation. Theirs is a dynamic job as they adapt operations to meet a triple challenge: sustaining a safe marine and maritime environment for all users, responding to industry's efforts to increase ports and waterways throughput, and keeping pace with continuously advancing technologies. Now and well into the future, effective waterways management and port stakeholder collaboration will enable the safe utilization of our nation's shared waterways. We intend to grow our waterways workforce in the coming years to meet the new demands. And the risk of cyber attacks to maritime critical infrastructure and maritime organizations threatens the resilience of our nation's maritime transportation system. This past August, we released an updated cyber strategic document that outlines how the Coast Guard is adapting to protect the marine transportation system, as well as defend our own network and how we operate in cyberspace. These efforts range from prevention and response strategies, leveraging relationships with interagency partners, and building a robust cyber workforce. A workforce that I'm excited to announce now includes a new cyber mission specialist rating within the Coast Guard and its own Chief Warrant Officer specialty. You know, clearly the maritime domain is changing. Global fish stocks are dwindling, the threat of piracy endures, and storms have become more frequent and destructive. As nations confront these challenges, they increasingly look to Coast Guards, and they see our service, the United States Coast Guard, as a global standard bearer. The White House, too, has recognized the value of sharing our centuries of experience with like-minded navies and Coast Guards. The administration's recently released Indo-Pacific strategy calls to expand U.S. Coast Guard presence and cooperation against transnational threats. Advancing Coast Guard work with key partners across the globe is a charge we accept with vigor. You know, in the Indo-Pacific, we are active today. Our seagoing buoy tenders, fast response cutters team and conduct expeditionary patrols across Oceania, exercising bilateral agreements, and our deployable specialized forces, DSF forces, strengthen partners' maritime domain awareness and law enforcement capabilities. National security cutters operate with the maritime forces of Japan, Australia, and numerous Southeast Asian nations. And this summer, National Security Cutter Midget will work with partners, perhaps as far away as the Indian Ocean. And last spring on the Black Sea, National Security Cutter Hamilton conducted exercises with regional naval forces, including the Ukrainians, the Turks, the Georgians, to strengthen relationships with partners and allies. For 3 successive years, cutters have deployed to West Africa to participate in the Africa Maritime Law Enforcement Partnership, commonly referred to as AMLIP, a program we've supported with Coast Guard deployable specialized forces and mobile training teams dating back to 2010. These operations showcase how we are united in service with the Joint Force, supporting every geographic combatant command in every numbered U.S. naval fleet, playing a critical role to secure our national interests and confront threats and challenges before they reach American shores. 2 weeks ago, I had the privilege to engage 36 defense leaders from the African continent at U.S. AFRICOM's Chiefs of Defense Conference, describing how the United States Coast Guard might help them develop their skills and their capabilities. This work advances the tri-service maritime strategy with our U.S. Navy and U.S. Marine Corps teammates. You know, pivoting to the CENTCOM theater, here's a specific example of how the Coast Guard supports the joint fight. In both May and December of 2021 in the Arabian Gulf, the Coast Guard's Advanced Interdiction Team, an element of our maritime security and response team, interdicted thousands of assault weapons and hundreds of thousands of rounds of ammunition pictured here. These efforts by our highly trained and dedicated teams prevented illicit weapons from reaching those who threaten our own U.S. forces and our coalition partners. Such efforts help ensure legitimate commercial shipping can transit freely on the world's oceans. This past year, National Security Cutters Kimball and Berthoff deployed to the Bering Sea, the gateway to the Arctic, a region from which 50% of our nation's fish and shellfish are harvested. And while there, they monitored a Chinese Naval Surface Action Group, which was operating a mere 50 miles off the Aleutian Island coast. Without question, Warming air and rising sea temperatures are increasing the number of actors and their activities in the Arctic. Elevated activity increases risk to maritime safety, national security, and the marine environment. To that end, for over 150 years, the United States Coast Guard has maintained a consistent presence in the geostrategically important Arctic region. With the planned delivery of polar security cutters in the years ahead, that presence will continue. This past year, our medium icebreaker, the Healy, completed the historic circumnavigation of North America via the Northwest Passage. And today, our sole heavy icebreaker, the Polar Star, is wrapping up work in Antarctic waters. After enabling replenishment of the McMurdo Station, Star continues south to set a new world record, transiting to the southernmost navigable waters on the planet. Our icebreakers, they sail with a diverse contingent of crew members, scientists, key partner nation naval officers, and even some Coast Guard auxiliaries. As I continue to unequivocally note, in the high latitudes, presence absolutely equals influence. You know, here in the Western Hemisphere, we remain united in service with interagency and international partners as we thwart bulk shipments of narcotics smuggled at sea. Last week, I had the privilege of joining the crew of National Security Cutter James for their second large drug offload in the past 6 months. Collectively, James offloaded 130,000 pounds of illicit drugs interdicted across 40 separate seizures by various cutter crews, law enforcement detachments deployed aboard U.S., Canadian, and Dutch naval vessels, and enabled by our helicopter interdiction airborne use of force capabilities. Interdicting bulk quantities of narcotics at sea keeps drugs off American streets, and it deprives transnational criminal organizations of their illicit revenue streams. Well done to all those who feed the interdiction cycle of success. Our hemispheric neighbors to the south have a lot at stake in this fight, as transnational criminal organizations gravely threaten their way of life, their economies, and their individual and collective security. Persistent interagency training and collaboration across the vast Joint Interagency Task Force South operating area has been tremendously successful. In 2021, Panama, Colombia, and Costa Rica collectively removed 225 metric tons. That's nearly 500,000 pounds of illicit narcotics from the maritime transit zone. They are highly effective counter-narcotics partners. Perhaps a joint interagency framework to counter illegal, unreported, unregulated fishing could yield similar successes. We, the United States Coast Guard, look forward to contributing a leadership role towards such ends.
Most people don't think about the ocean space as this interconnected, geopolitically charged, vital zone. Foreign nations stealing fish on large levels can cause governments to topple.
They're really eroding maritime governance. If you think about it, it's lying, cheating, and stealing.
We have large factory vessels with huge catching capacity that are illegally operating on those waters. It has a negative effect on the trophic food chain.
Illegal fishing is a crime that ties to arms trafficking, sea slavery, murder. The oceans are absolutely essential for the survival of the planet. There's no one better in the U.S. government than the U.S. Coast Guard to talk about some of the, kind of brutalities and worries that exist out there.
We've been involved in, combating illegal fishing for 150 years.
That's what the Coast Guard can really bring to this mission is our expertise, and we can help train other Coast Guards so that they might be able to similarly enforce those laws in the EEZs of their countries.
We're resourcing major cutters to get after this mission in places where there's historically been relatively low enforcement. Ultimately, we're looking for global adherence to international agreements and conservation measures that promote the recovery, preservation, and long-term economic viability of global fish stocks.
We're only going to make a dent in the challenge that is IUU fishing when we can stand united.
No single country or individual can tackle this alone, right? It is our collective effort that is going to have an impact in this.
I think what unites all people is an awareness of how little we know and how little we police the space on the one hand, and how important it is to our survival on the other hand.
Illegal, unreported, unregulated fishing, commonly referred to as IUUF, is certainly a global challenge. This past year, we launched an implementation plan to support our IUUF strategic outlook released in September 2020. Our efforts to help counter IUUF fishing behaviors have created new avenues to collaborate and share best practices of Coast Guard work. All these initiatives, modernizing our assets, capabilities, support functions and operations, and countless others, were informed, created, supported, and implemented by you, our incredibly talented, agile, and dedicated Coast Guard workforce. The key to our success has always been our people, our diverse workforce of active duty, civilian, reserve, and auxiliary volunteers. In 2019, I asked you to join me in building a tidal wave of energy to ensure all members of Team Coast Guard were respected, empowered, and included, and you have. Informed by our partnership with the RAND Corporation to deliver the Women's Retention and Underrepresented Minority Studies, and inside our own Lifelines work through our LDACs and Affinity Councils, we have been united in service to create a more inclusive Coast Guard, a service where every member of our team can experience a strong sense of belonging. While there's still much work to do, I ask you to celebrate our work in progress and recommit to marching the ball even further down the proverbial inclusion playing field. As we work hard to achieve a Coast Guard representative of the population we serve, we've placed new officer recruiting positions in DC, Hampton Roads, Atlanta, Miami, and Houston. This past November, we formally established our fourth and largest to date Coast Guard Junior Reserve Office Training Corps, or JROTC program, right here in this county at Pinellas Park. 170 local students are already participating in this program. And having our young Americans engage with our frontline service members in an area like this, replete with many operational units, is the absolute best way to generate interest in the United States Coast Guard. And have you seen Station in Destin's BM3 Justin LaBeouf? He teaches the smarter everyday hosts just how to whistle. That YouTube video, posted a month ago, has received 4.4 million views. I imagine Petty Officer LaBeouf may have helped recruit many a future Coastie. Well done there, BM3. We are united in service, eliminating barriers to success. Since 2019, Congress has provided an additional $6 million for our child care subsidy program, expanding the pool of eligible members and providing targeted financial relief to those living in high-cost child care areas. The program nearly tripled the number of enrolled children in just 2 years. And we've received funds to make major improvements to Coast Guard housing in Alaska, New York, and California. And we've advocated for and anticipate funding in our fiscal year 22 appropriation to start replacing our substandard recruit barracks at Training Center Cape May, the home of our enlisted workforce. We're developing geographic centers of gravity, creating more Coast Guard hubs like Portsmouth, Virginia, and Alameda, California. These newer improved operating hubs will be in Charleston, Seattle, Pensacola, Los Angeles, and Newport, Rhode Island. And these operating hubs will allow us to better support our operational assets and to further support the geographic stability of our Coast Guard workforce. We also continue to derive tangible benefits from our initiative to provide reservist backfills to allow active duty members to optimize their parental leave, like Chief Schwartz in the video. 365 active duty Coast Guard members have taken advantage of this opportunity, improving their work-life balance and affording some exceptional active duty opportunities to our highly capable Coast Guard reservists. And we made significant improvements in telehealth capabilities, and we have increased mental health care access, strengthening the resilience of our force. These efforts include the hiring of 10 mental health doctors, 5 regional nurse care managers, 14 regional behavioral health providers, with more to follow. And we've quadrupled our auxiliary chaplain corps, who augment our 46 active duty chaplains, providing more touch points with our geographically distributed workforce. And we continue to benefit from our robust co-location policy for members married to members. And we've implemented screening requirements for advancement to Master Chief Petty Officer to ensure our best leaders emerge from our senior enlisted ranks. We've also taken great steps to improve career management for our workforce. We've created enlisted career guides and placed additional career counselors to guide career progression and improve transparency in the advancement process. And soon, we'll publish Ready Workforce 2030, building on these changes and describing the strategic vision of how the service will approach talent management and modernize Ready learning in the next decade. In addition to achieving your professional goals, we want you to achieve your educational goals. Last year, we raised the tuition assistance cap to $3,750. Nearly 5,000 members participate in tuition assistance, and over 1,200 took advantage of the increase. Today, effective immediately, the Coast Guard is increasing tuition assistance by another 20% to the $4,500 maximum level authorized across the armed forces. These are just a few of the many examples of how your Coast Guard is united in service, making investments in and adapting policies to attract and retain our dedicated workforce. And while there's always room for improvement, I'm pleased to report that our collective efforts to retain our workforce are working. Today, more women are remaining in our service longer. Today, we have 375 more women in the service at the critically important E6, E7, and 04 mid-grade leadership ranks than we had a few short years ago in 2017. That's a 28% increase of women in these mid-grade pay bands. And that trend that outpaces their male counterparts. You know, the rising tide lifts all boats aphorism applies here today. Across the Coast Guard, 60% of our active duty workforce at the 15-year time in service mark stays with the force. That's pretty impressive. This encouraging trend falls amidst the corporate America's great resignation, and I think it speaks to the Coast Guard's growth mindset and the comprehensive efforts we are taking to value and hence retain our talented workforce members. We must continue this progress because we cannot be the United States Coast Guard our nation needs without each member of our workforce. You, the extraordinary members of our mission-ready total workforce, are the change agents who maximize our team's potential. You are the inspector who shapes novel vessel construction. You are the storekeeper who provides a much-needed part to a frontline operator. You are the voice on the radio who gives hope to a distressed mariner, and the first responder who pulls that mariner from the sea. You are the systems developer who collaborates and who innovates to get the mission done. Individually, you are valued. United in service, we are invaluable. As your Commandant, I am ever thankful for the support of the local communities in which we operate, the support of our department, the administration, and the Congress. The state of the Coast Guard is indeed strong, at a time when the demand for our services and our capabilities has never been higher, and the challenges on you and your families uniquely difficult. You are the most talented, tenacious, and inclusive team of shipmates and Coast Guard families that I've been blessed to serve with over the past 4 decades. On behalf of your senior leadership team, the many Coast Guard and maritime agencies we partner with across the globe, and all Americans, I offer my deepest gratitude and my admiration. Today, we celebrate your accomplishments and successes, forever united in service. Thank you, and Semper Paratus. Thank you.